fastest show in sports.
Excuse me. You're the Southeastern Conference, right? Oh, how a pleasure to meet you. By the way, didn't you used to be invincible? I mean, weren't you at one time the single greatest conference in the history of college football, no matter how long it's ever been held? Weren't you without question the conference that had every single team that needed to be beat, that was unbeatable maybe at some times in the NCAA, in college football, and you were the kingpins? Am I right? Am I right? But it's really maybe slipping just a little bit. See, we've been through a time when, without question, let's be honest here, the SEC has been the most powerful conference in college football. Without question. All you have to do is look at some of the teams. Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Louisiana State, Florida, Auburn, and Ole Miss now. But that's just a few. There's 16 teams in the SEC right now. And when you break it all down, this past season, 6 of those teams finished under 500. 9 were in single-digit victories only. 9 had 500 or worse in conference play. Now, it's fair to say that Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama all finished 7-1, along with Ole Miss that also finished 7-1. I mean, that's pretty good when you look at it. 4 teams that won 7 of their 8 games in conference. But is the SEC now still the most powerful conference in college football? Stop there for a second, because this show is going to be distributed specifically for people who follow SEC football. I know, I'm putting my head right in the lion's mouth. It happens every time. And I kind of enjoy it, as a matter of fact, because fans of the SEC are going to come back at me and they are going to scream bloody murder. How dare you question the SEC? Do you really think, if you look, Ed, you just said it yourself. You said 7 teams finished 7-1, and not only that, we've got a team in the Final Four. We haven't gone anywhere. Yeah, but Alabama certainly is not the franchise. See, I'm one of the guys who now has basically gone on to use the words franchises for college athletics, because these aren't college teams anymore. These are franchises, just like everybody else. Alabama is a franchise right now that's got a little bit of a problem. I mean, they were upset. Alabama was supposed to be the consistent power, and they're not really that anymore. I'm not so sure, and again, Alabama fans are going to hammer me for this hard. I'm not so sure Alabama is feared anymore. I mean, maybe just a one-year dip. We're going to find out next year. Let's look at Georgia. Is Georgia as feared as they once were? They should be. I mean, if you think about it, Georgia really they were another team that finished 7-1. I mean, they got to still be good, but does anybody fear Georgia? Nobody fears Tennessee at this point. I mean, there's just been the last couple of seasons, there's been a downward trend. Nobody really, at this stage of the game, fears LSU. Now, Lane Kiffin could change all that, but Lane Kiffin's carrying an awful lot of baggage going into LSU, and he's dealing with a program right now that's got a lot of problems. So I don't see anybody that fears LSU. Florida, nobody fears the Gators anymore. And for my Gator friends, and I got a lot of them, I got a lot of Gator fans, and the Gator people are going to hear this too, and I guarantee you they're going to be really pissed at me. Nobody fears you. I mean, there was a time when the Florida Gators were one of those teams that, nationally speaking, you feared them. Maybe you didn't, maybe you weren't scared, but you were hesitant, because you knew that Florida was going to put up a great game. Not anymore. It hasn't happened for a couple of seasons. I mean, the Gators are really in a complete rebuilding mode, and under normal circumstances, it might take a couple of seasons to come back. But remember, when it comes to college football, we're not in normal circumstances anymore. I mean, you can now, thanks to the transfer portal, you can make up a new team in a season. I mean, all you got to do is pay the money, which we'll talk about in another show about all those players that are making money. Auburn? Nobody's scared of Auburn anymore. So, if you were to ask me who is feared in college football right now, I would have to say that even though they lost, Ohio State is still in there. I'd have to think that Michigan is still in there. Oregon, without question, is a team that you got to be concerned with because in the last several years, thanks to all the money they've gotten, they have risen to become a very powerful program with even more potential. But if you look across the board, does anybody really fear Texas, or Texas Tech, or any of the other schools that are even? Nobody really fears a school in the Northeast. Penn State certainly is a team that you want to fear, but they're also in another one of those instances where they're rebuilding. But I want to bring this back to the SEC. The SEC is no longer invincible. And the SEC has to understand that, and I think they have. I mean, look, this is a conference that has been making billions of dollars over the years. They have been racking up national championships and shots at national championships. I mean, look, I talked about the Gators a minute ago. Let's not forget the Gators won national championships in college basketball. I mean, that's a hell of an accomplishment right there. So it's not fair to say that they're down, but they're certainly down in the football program, because nobody expects Florida to win the SEC. Not this coming season, maybe not for the next couple of seasons, but they should at least be in the mix. But when you look at the SEC, they know how powerful they are, how powerful they can be. The issue here is, like it is in every place else around college football right now, is the transfer portal. As I said, that changes everything in a blink of an eye, or in the payment of a check, whatever you want to put it in. And you can't take away from the SEC the insane amount of money that they have. We've seen that as LSU has gone after Lane Kiffin and the tremendous amount of money that they're paying him, and the money that Ole Miss of all people, of all schools, is now paying big money. And you've got all those other schools sitting there. You know, Georgia has got an unlimited bank account. Tennessee's got an unlimited bank account. Certainly Auburn does. Certainly a lot of these other teams do. Texas, without question. Alabama. Untold amounts of money they can get to. But have they made the smart moves in recent seasons to maintain being that number one conference? And again, I'm going to get hammered because people are going to tell me that how can you ask if they're the number one conference in the country if they still are powerful, still have 4 teams that finished 7-1 this year, and have a team in the national championship? All I'm saying is it's leveling out to the point where those other schools are catching up. I will tell you this, that from my discussions with people that are really great friends in the SEC, most of them have told me that there is nothing more embarrassing to them than Ole Miss being the kingpin in the SEC. I had one person tell me, who comes from one of the most powerful schools in the SEC, and this person is up the food chain, said to me, I got to be honest with you, this is embarrassing. Because just a couple of years ago, this school was absolutely nowhere. I mean, nobody feared Ole Miss. Come on. You know, and if you're an Ole Miss fan, you have to agree with me. You can't scream and holler back at me. In maybe 5 years ago, certainly longer than that, Ole Miss was not even, Ole Miss a contender for the title? You still had Florida, you had Georgia, you had Alabama, you had LSU, you had all of these teams, Tennessee, you had all of these great teams sitting there. I know I'm missing some, okay? Don't hammer me at that for just missing a couple here. I'm making a point. What I'm saying is, there are people in the SEC right now who are determined to unseat Ole Miss as the conference champion because they see it as that embarrassment. With all these other schools out there and all the money, Ole Miss. And again, people at Ole Miss are going to get all upset about this, and you're going to see that I'm denigrating you. I'm not. I'm basically just throwing out the facts here. Nobody, before this season, maybe last season, nobody feared Ole Miss. And as a matter of fact, I get it. They're in the Final Four right now, but still, do you think Miami fears Ole Miss? I'm not so sure about that. I mean, to a lot of people in the SEC that I've spoken with, Ole Miss getting there was one of the luckiest things to ever happen in the history of college football. I disagree with that because as far as I'm concerned, luck doesn't make much difference here because you're spending money, you're bringing in coaches, you're getting the right talent. You got to put them together. And Ole Miss certainly did that. And a big hand of that has to go to Kiffin. Kiffin certainly made them something to be respected, not feared. But if Ole Miss, and here's the thing, we're taping this show before the Ole Miss-Miami game. If Miami blows out Ole Miss, then Ole Miss is going to drop right to the bottom of the respect pile. I don't expect that to happen because Miami is fallible. And I think Ole Miss has got a hell of a team. But a lot of the stuff that's gone on at Ole Miss right now is going to create a problem for them as they move forward. Hell, I hope they get over it. Because in many ways, I'm rooting for Ole Miss, and I'm not an alum. I have no connections there whatsoever. But I'm rooting for them in the sense that I just like the fact that there's somebody else there who's not expected. You know, somebody who's actually in the mix, who's not one of those power teams that's going to win everything. Snarl, gnarl, all this other stuff. No, Ole Miss is there. I like it. But, it's the big but here. Does Ole Miss show that the SEC is still a powerful conference? I tend to think in many ways, yes. And again, as I said, you can't take away what out of 16 teams, you had those 4 teams that won 7 of their 8 games. Hell, go find other conferences that have that kind of mix. There's others out there. It used to be that the SEC was an automatic. I guess that's my point. I don't see the SEC as an automatic anymore for a national championship. Do I see them in the mix? Come on. Don't be stupid. Don't be foolish. Of course. Anybody who looks at college football in any way, shape, or form has got to look at the SEC and say, these guys, there's going to be at least 3 teams, maybe 4, maybe 5 or 6 teams that are going to be in there for the national championship chase. It's not as if, and I'm not saying that the SEC is all of a sudden becoming an also-ran conference, but everybody else is slowly catching up to the SEC. The SEC is going to have to maintain. Can they maintain as other schools take advantage of the portal and as other schools now become more attractive, if you will, for the major college players who have a choice? Well, let's look at it this way. Every college football player now has a choice. You can go anywhere. All you have to do is find the interest. The money's there. Are they going to find the interest? Do they want to go to Georgia? Do they want to be part of Alabama? Do they want to be part of LSU or Ole Miss? Or are they going to take more money from Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas Tech, Texas, Miami, Florida, who is now, and I got to tell you something else, as far as money is concerned, I mean, LSU can throw all the money they want at Kiffin right now, but do yourself a favor and watch the bank accounts and watch the cash flow out of Florida for this offseason and for the next coming seasons. There is huge money there. They are embarrassed. They're angry. They are sick and tired of being considered nothing more than a second, third, or fourth sister in the SEC. Florida's pissed. I mean, more than any other school. And again, I talk to everybody along the line. And as I've said, I got great friends at Florida. They're pissed. I mean, this is an angry bunch of Gators right now because they believe that they should be in the national championship picture every single season. And they haven't been there for a while. They're an embarrassment. It's these 4 coaches that they've gone through. I mean, they basically recycled and cycled through coaches at a point, and they picked the wrong coaches. If you want to look at a school in the SEC that has made really more mistakes than any other, you got to go to Florida right now. They have made an incredible amount of mistakes over the last, 12 years? Maybe even more than that with their coaches and the coaches they've decided to bring in. Yeah, they've been close a couple times, but there's no consistency at Florida. There's none of that year in and year out powerhouse that you would expect to see. So if you're going to look for money to be spent in the SEC, look at Florida. LSU has spent the money, and they're going to spend more money to bring him in now because they have to. I mean, they've backed themselves into a corner. They got to make Kiffin look good, and they got to give Kiffin whatever he wants. And I'm not saying that Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee and Auburn and blah, 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 blah are not going to still spend ridiculous amounts of money because they all want to be at the top now. And not only that, but we have a field of 12 right now. The playoff field is going to go to 16, and then it's going to go to 24. How many schools in the SEC are going to wind up in that stead? Who are the major conferences going to be? Look, you have to figure when everything shakes out at the end. I mean, the SEC has got to be one of the surviving most powerful conferences in the country, and that's where a lot of money is going to be concentrated and where a lot of money is going to be spent. So, the point is, I am not saying that the SEC is lacking. I'm saying they're in a little bit of a down right now. Just a little bit. I mean, I get it. Ole Miss is there. They got a lot of teams there. They've been playing in the championship. I understand that. But I think the SEC has got to be careful. And the schools have got to be careful. Because everybody else is starting to catch up. And the SEC, with the schools that they have, with the money that they have, there is absolutely no sense whatsoever, no chance, there is no discussion whatsoever that they need to be in the mix and be one of the most powerful conferences, remain one of the most powerful conferences in college football. But oh baby, is it gonna be expensive.
Ed Berliner, the fastest show in sports.